Welcome to Phillip Island, Victoria in Australia. What a setting we have for this great sporting contest, the Little Penguin Sea to Dune race. Nervous moments always as they gather on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntyre, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, 1 or 2 still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
Welcome to Live Penguin TV. My name is Megan and I'm going to be talking to you about all things penguin as we watch the world's smallest species of penguin, our little penguins coming out of the water, crossing the beach and heading back to their burrows here on Phillip Island in Victoria, Australia. Tonight I'm joined by Vivian. Vivian, come on in, tell us what you're going to be doing tonight.
Hello everyone. Tonight I'm going to be watching you talking to us on Facebook and YouTube and asking Megan as many questions as we can fit in tonight, so ask away. Thank you.
Thanks, Viv. And Vivian has been spending a lot of time looking through all of your Facebook questions, so it's lovely to finally have her on the live stream in person. You can all see who's been answering a lot of your questions over our time in the live stream, so it's great to be having you here, Vivian, in person. Now, we have had a few little penguins swimming around in the water here, having a bit of a look around. There we go, there's one. We're working out whether it's safe to come in, but it's not quite dark enough yet. And we are watching our penguins from Phillip Island, which is also known as Millau. And that is a traditional name given to Phillip Island by the Bunurong. And they have been coming here to Millau for thousands of years before European settlement. And they would have been the first people seeing penguins crossing the beach, and they've taken great care of this land over those many, many years. So I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Bunurong, and their elders past, present and emerging. And we are joining you from Millau, and we are also Phillip Island Nature Parks, which is a non-for-profit organisation which cares for about 20% of Millau. So we look after our little penguins here at the Penguin Parade, including the entire penguin colony of about 32,000 little penguins. We have our Koala Reserve, Churchill Island Heritage Farm, the Nobby Centre, a colony of about 20,000 Australian fur seals, and many of the beautiful beaches, wetlands and woodlands all around Phillip Island. So thank you for tuning in to see a little bit of what we do here at Phillip Island Nature Parks with our little penguins, and we do encourage you that if you want to learn a little bit more, come visit us when it is safe to do so. We've been enjoying seeing visitors from other states around Australia recently, and hopefully we'll be able to welcome people back from around the world sooner rather than later. But if you do want to help us, you can come and visit us, and all of the funding that comes from your tickets to come to any of those areas goes back into conservation research and education. But of course, many of you can't visit us. So you can help us out by donating to our Penguin Foundation. You can adopt a penguin, adopt a seal, a bandicoot, any of the wonderful animals we have here at Phillip Island to help us look after them and protect them into the future so we can continue seeing these animals thrive, watching our little penguins crossing the beach in such great numbers that we've been seeing lately. And the penguins, they have been coming in early the last few nights, so I did think we would start the stream a little bit earlier tonight. Of course, as the days get shorter and the sun's starting to set earlier, our penguins are coming in early. So they came in at about 10 past 8 last night, and it was similar to tonight. It was quite overcast, and we have an extremely high tide. So what the penguins are doing right now, the penguins that want to come home, because they won't all come home each and every night, the ones that want to come back to their burrows tonight, they've been out here for the last couple of hours just offshore, forming groups that we call rafts. And let's see if we can spot any out in the water. And we call them a raft because that's what they look like, a black line floating on the surface of the water. And that's a group of penguins joining together, and they'll be talking to each other. They'll be going, "Huck, huck, huck, huck." So if you're new to Live Penguin TV, you might have seen people going, "Huck, huck," in the comments. And they're saying that because that's what penguins say to group together, to join together before they come onto land. They say that huck, make that noise. So that's what they're doing right now. In those groups, they're looking up at the horizon. They're looking up to where our camera is, waiting for it to get a little bit darker, because that's when they're safest to come onto land. There is one penguin there. What are you doing? Probably not going across by itself, but it is quite dark. The tide's quite high, so if that penguin's feeling really brave, it might cross. But as it's still a little bit light, there is still an element of danger for our little penguins. And what they're worried about is birds of prey. So big birds, things like sea eagles, Pacific gulls, swamp harriers, that'll be out hunting. That's what the penguins are worried about, because our little penguins are the smallest species of penguin. That they only grow to about 33 centimeters. They only weigh about 1 kilo. So they are in danger from being eaten by those birds of prey. But once it gets dark, those birds can't see to hunt, and that's when it's safest for the penguins to cross the beach. So that's what they're waiting for. And if they have a nice big group, they have safety in numbers. So it's a lot harder for a predator to pick out an individual penguin than if they were to cross by themselves. I say that and then 2 penguins appear on their own. What are you guys doing? They're feeling brave, and that penguin looks a little bit strange. Look at his face.
Now, Stephen and I did talk to Paula, you might remember, one of our penguin experts, about him, who he has worn down his feathers around his head.
Yeah.
And apparently they can still oil those feathers, which I didn't know.
I did hear that from Paula. It's very, very interesting, because you would think that they do have those special waterproof feathers that keep them warm and dry in the water. But yeah, this penguin, you wouldn't think it would be waterproof. So isn't that amazing that they can still waterproof, even though the main blue part of those feathers is worn away? This little guy has still managed to waterproof them. And I really hope that he's coming back to molt, because once this penguin molts, oh, poor darling, it should get a brand new set of feathers. And I think it's looking likely, because it's a real chunky penguin. It's struggling to get over the rocks. And it can't be very well camouflaged. The penguins really do rely on their feathers, not just to keep them dry and warm in the water, but also to keep them safe from predators. So they usually don't have to worry about predators when they're out at sea, even those birds of prey, because they are so well camouflaged they're almost invisible. When they're floating on the surface, all of their back should be blue, so they should blend in really well with the ocean for anything flying overhead. And then the little white bellies blend in with the sky if you're looking up at them from below. So a penguin like this one might be a little bit more vulnerable to being predated upon. So I hope he's coming back It's going to replace all its feathers and have a brand new set for the winter. And we do get asked quite a bit if we've ever had any albino penguins. And I do remember Paula again saying that she saw an albino chick in one of her study sites who fledged, but we've never seen that chick come back again. Because it is really difficult for those chicks in their first year of life. They have to learn to find food. They already are working against the odds to survive. So a chick that is all white and doesn't have that camouflage is probably going to struggle even more. So it definitely does happen, but it's definitely not ideal to have all white feathers. But this penguin looks to be doing quite well. It's nice and chunky and hopefully coming back to molt. And I can't get over how strange that penguin looks.
Yeah, I've never seen one looking like that in the years I've been here.
Yeah, and not just the level of whiteness, but the dark around the eyes and the neck as well. It almost looks like a different species, but we do only have little penguins here in Australia. If we do get the occasional penguin getting off track. We did have a Fiordland penguin who was, sorry, I just saw that. Is that a tennis ball on the beach? I think we'll have to pick that up when there's no penguins on the beach. Oh my gosh, is that another penguin with feather wear? Yeah, we did get the odd Fiordland penguin who got a little bit lost and came onto shores in Australia and was taken to our wildlife clinic here at the Penguin Parade to be rehabilitated for release back into the wild. So we do care for all different wildlife here, not just little penguins, but other species of penguin we might come across, and a whole range of other animals. And that clinic is actually funded by the Penguin Foundation, so that's something else that you can help support. And this penguin as well has a lot of feather wear.
I've heard there were more than one around.
Yeah, I've seen a few, but this 2 in a row is a little unusual. But if we are going to see a lot of feather wear, this is the time of year we're going to see it, because these penguins have had these feathers all year. They've been working really hard. They're diving over 1,000 times every day looking for food. They've been breeding, feeding their chicks, and now we're coming to the end of the breeding season. Most of those chicks are fledged, and these penguins are getting ready for molt. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say they need to molt, it's in little penguins, it's what we call a catastrophic molt, where they have to lose and replace all of their feathers all at once, because they do have those special waterproof properties. So they can't lose and replace just a few. They have to lose and replace all of them. So they have to spend about 2 to 3 weeks on land to do that. And that means that they can't eat for those few weeks. So they have to more than double their body weight. So that's why we're going to be seeing some really chunky penguins tonight. And I like to call them chunky. I know Stephen calls some of them certified chunkers when they're absolutely massive, which happens. Sometimes they're so fat that they can't even walk upright. They're just lying on their bellies, pulling themselves along with their flippers and their feet, which I love. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, that's right. Because I don't like to call them fat, because they aren't fat. They're actually putting on most of their weight in muscles. So they're little penguin bodybuilders getting ready for that molt. And this guy he's a bit chunky and he's struggling through the rocks there. And I do love watching the molting penguins, because I think I said this before, they don't want to be here. They're fat, they're hot, they're itchy, they're hungry, they're really grumpy. So I'm sure these penguins can't wait to lose and replace all their feathers, have a beautiful, nice new set of blue and white feathers, and then they'll be spending up to a month out at sea as we head into winter.
I did have a question about molting. Do they molt every year?
They do molt every year. And they do it this time of year because they are spending so much longer out at sea in winter. But it's still a time of year when there's a lot of food available. So they breed when there's the most food available to raise their chicks. And then towards the end of that breeding season, when there's still quite a bit of food, they fatten up for molt, getting ready for that lean period, for that winter where food moves further away. So they can't come onto land as often. They don't have that easy access to food like they do during the breeding season. So they strategically time that molt. They don't plan it. It's hormone induced at the end of breeding. When there's lots of food, they induce that molt. And they do it every year. So the longest they'll ever have between molting is when a chick fledges for the first time. It might fledge around November, December, and then it might not molt until around March, April, not the following year, but the year after. So they might go about 14, maybe up to 16 months without molting, whereas usually they will do it every 12 months. So Paula has suggested that maybe those penguins that have a lot of feather wear might be young penguins who haven't actually molted before. Do you have another question, Viv?
We have had a lot of people notice this little GoPro
Yes,
here.
I was wondering if you guys have seen that. I'm sure our water watchers who watch every night have seen that. That's a bit out of place. We do have a media group doing some filming tonight. I believe they're from Getaway, and they're down here with Ranger Sky on Penguins Plus. So they're getting some footage for TV. So they have special permits and conditions that they work under to collect footage of our little penguins. And I know that we would all love to get a photo or some video of these little guys. But if you've been here before, you would know that we do have a total ban on photos and videos after sunset. And that's to protect our little penguins, because they have very sensitive eyesight. So we don't want any artificial lights or accidental flashes that are going to disorient the penguins, confuse them or startle them, because that can mean that they won't find their way home, which is especially bad when they are heading home to feed chicks. Sometimes it can be so bad that they might even throw up their food. So we don't allow just anyone to take photos and videos here, because we do have to have that absolute assurance that no flashes are going to go off to help protect our penguins. So these guys do have special permits and regulations, and they are being supervised by Sky, who's making sure that they're doing all the right things to capture some great footage of our little penguins to share with all of you, and hopefully encourage more people to come and visit our little penguins. It was fantastic seeing the sands full of people here to see our penguins over the long weekend. So continue coming, we're loving it. And if you do recognize us, give us a hug. It's great to see people who've been watching the live stream and have already been learning so much about our penguins and who've been inspired to come and see them. I reckon some of you probably know almost as much as we do about penguins now, watching night after night. It's wonderful to see the dedication. Now let me zoom out a little bit, because where are the rest of our penguins? Viv, have we had a start to the count?
No, we haven't.
Wow, the penguins are tricking me. I thought, 10 past 8 the last 2 nights. It's going to be the same tonight. Similar conditions. Incoming tide. The tide is coming in till after 9 o'clock tonight. They have no beach to walk across. Where are all the penguins? So we do need 5 penguins to start our penguin count. So those 2 penguins that have crossed, or 3, sorry, they're not going to make the cut. They're not going to start our penguin count on their own. They needed to bring 2 more friends before we officially start counting them. These guys are included in... here we go. Just on cue, they've arrived.
Yep. Just had a start at 8:21.
There we go. Finally, there's a start to our penguin count. And now we do have Rach counting the penguins tonight, who some of you might know. She's going to be counting the penguins now for the next 50 minutes, and she'll be counting them... she's going to have a tough job counting them tonight. Send all of your love to Rach. See if you can count how many is in this first group. Have a bit of a guess. And if you watched last night, let us know how many penguins you thought came in last night. Send in both your guesses and see who gets closest. See who wins the Penguin Lotto at your home. Viv, do you know how many penguins we had last night?
Yes, last night we had 1,674. Much bigger than we've had recently.
Yeah, 1,674. I definitely wouldn't have expected so many. I think last time I was here we had around 900. And we do expect those numbers to reduce a bit as we do have more penguins staying on land to molt, or they are out fattening up for molt, or even just finished breeding. They'll be heading out to sea for a bit longer. But the penguins like to keep us on our toes. They aren't always as predictable as we like to think that they are. And something that they may start to do once they finish molting, sometimes if conditions stay good and food stays close, they might do something called their autumn breeding attempt. which is when the water is still kind of warm. Conditions are similar to spring. There's lots of food, and the penguins think, well, they don't think, they kind of instinctively like, oh, this feels like breeding time. This is the right time to breed, isn't it? So they start mating, courting, renovating their burrows. And we used to see this a lot, and it used to be called false breeding, because they would do that courtship and mating, but they wouldn't lay eggs or raise chicks. But now we call it the autumn breeding attempt, because we have seen them starting to raise chicks, lay eggs, and they have been successful. We had a really big autumn breeding attempt. When was it? 2019?
Yeah,
they
did.
It was about 25% of our penguin pairs here at the Penguin Parade successfully raised chicks in autumn, which was incredible. And it's something we're starting to see more and more as our climate's changing, the sea temperatures are changing, and the food stocks of fish for these penguins are moving a bit differently. So that actually worked out quite well for our penguins. They were able to raise more chicks in that year. But for some of our penguins a little bit further north, because we do have colonies going up as far as Sydney and Western Australia, they're not doing quite as well with some of the high temperatures they're getting up there. And this is a nice big group. Do we know how many
Yes,
there were?
yes, we do. Rach said there was 114 in that.
Fantastic. Oh, and there's a nice big group coming along the highway. They're not wasting any time, these penguins. They wasted plenty of time coming in, leaving us waiting, but now they're in a rush to get home. Let's flip around to see those little penguin butts waddling away. There they go. And I love looking at them from this angle, because it's something you don't see. There's a chunker walking on his belly because he's too fat. Sorry, too chunky. I said I wouldn't call them fat. There they go. And that's kind of what you might see in the morning, an hour or two before sunrise, when the penguins head back out to sea. They'll walk back out to the water before the sun comes out, probably in a little bit smaller groups. They'll head back out again if they're not molting, if they need to head back out to sea to fish. And when they're out there, they're looking for small fish, things like anchovies, pilchards, jellyfish, squid, baby barracuda, young cod, anything they can fit in their mouths. Pretty much these little guys are eating. And we actually know a lot about what they eat. We've done a range of different things, but the way we found out penguins actually eat jellyfish was by looking at their poo. So I've had that fun job of collecting penguin poo before. It's not as easy as it sounds. You kind of have to put a little piece of cardboard in a penguin burrow, wait for them to poo on it, come back the next day and hope there's a nice clean sample, that the penguin hasn't put dirt or grass all over or anything. And then you have to scoop it up into a little vial, and it gets sent to get DNA tested to see what the penguins have been eating, which is quite amazing. From this little vial of penguin poo, we can work out what they've been eating while they've been out at sea. So it's really important for us to know what they're eating, and also where they're finding their food. So we've also, through the breeding season, been putting little trackers on penguins to see where they're going, because we need to know where those fish stocks are. So I was saying that those fish stocks are changing in where they are and how abundant they are with changes in temperatures. So we need to know that information so we can help protect them, because if there's no fish, there's no penguins. So that's something that's really important, and something you can do if you want to help protect the fish stocks for our penguins is to try and be mindful of what fish you're eating, and particularly if you have pets, or especially cats. There's a lot of sardines, is it mostly?
Sardines, pilchards and anchovies are all over cat food.
Yes, I knew you would know. Viv used to work at a pet store. So keep out for keep an eye out for those things in your pet food. And I just saw a bandicoot. Slow down. If you saw that thing quickly run across the screen that I really struggled to follow, that was a little eastern barred bandicoot. Where's it got? No, that's a goose. It's over here. Let me see if I can follow it. And there's a wallaby. I'm trying to find the bandicoot, and all the other animals are distracting me. No, I think the bandicoot's long gone. much too quick for me, but I always get so excited when I see a bandicoot, because these little bandicoots, they are eastern barred bandicoots, and they were actually classified as extinct in the wild here on the Australian mainland. So we are very lucky to now have them here on Phillip Island, because we are fox free. So one of the massive undertakings that was put in place to help protect our penguins was a fox eradication program here on Phillip Island, which has been going for 40 years now, over 40 years, and we have been officially fox free for over 5-7 years.
Yeah, I think it was 2015 was the last
yes, one. So it's been quite a while now. We've officially had no foxes here on Phillip Island, and it was about 3 years ago we were able to introduce these eastern barred bandicoots onto Phillip Island, because their main threat out in the wild is those introduced predators like foxes. So they're thriving here now. From 67 individuals that we introduced, now we estimate there's over 300 bandicoots running around the Summerland Peninsula through the penguin habitat, and we're seeing them more and more down here at the Penguin Parade. I know I used to maybe see one once a week or once a fortnight, mostly when I was leaving through the car park at the end of the night, but now I think I see a bandicoot almost every night, and they're coming out before the penguins are even arriving. So if you do come and visit us, keep your eyes peeled for bandicoots. They are becoming more and more common, which is so exciting. I don't think I'll ever get sick of seeing them, like I never get sick of seeing the penguins, of course. The penguins are the star of the show, but the bandicoots do steal it a little bit. But they're quite quick, so you have to be quick to spot them. Now, let's see, these penguins are having a bit of a rest.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do penguins see in infrared?
That's a good question. I don't actually know. I do know that we use infrared night vision scopes to watch the penguins on one of the tours we do out on a separate beach called the Ultimate Tour. And they do seem to be able to see it. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like they can see it. Do you know the answer, Viv?
Not 100% sure, but we do know that penguins don't see normal red wavelengths of light very well.
Yeah, and that's why we have red lights here at the Penguin Parade, because they do... red light is filtered out in the water, so the penguins don't see it as well as they do blue light. But whether they see infrared, that might have to be something that we look up. We haven't been asked that one before.
No.
Very interesting. Thank you for that question.
Sorry for that. Bit hard.
No, that's all right. I like different questions, because I feel like so many we've talked about a lot, so it's nice to have new different things, and I'm always happy to admit when I don't know the answer to something. Quite often I think about it, I'm like, I think I can answer that, but it's fine to say I don't know, and then we'll have to find out, and we're always really excited to learn something new. So I've been here for over 4 years, and I'm always still learning new things, which I love sharing with you guys as well. So if you're asking questions that we don't know the answer to, it's kind of exciting, because then we get to go and find out the answer. Do you have any more that you think might stump me, Viv?
Or it might. So we said that penguins eat jellyfish. Mm-hmm. How do they avoid being stung by the jellyfish?
Oh, so I believe they're eating quite small, probably stingless jellyfish, and it's mostly salps, which I don't think actually have a stinger. So it's not like the ones you think of. Sorry, I was trying to follow these penguins, but they're too quick. Not like a blue bottle or a man of war. Not those like big jellyfish that you typically think of. I think they're little, quite small ones. Imagine a jellyfish small enough to fit in a penguin's mouth. I don't think it really has too much of a sting. But then again, I'm still not 100% sure on that one. I do know that it would be quite a difficult thing to kind of catch and swallow. So inside a penguin's mouth, quite often people ask us, do they have teeth? And they don't, but they have something that is kind of even better for what they eat, because they swallow fish whole, so they don't need to chew, but they have little fleshy barbs inside their mouth, and they point downwards so that when they catch a fish, the barbs pull it down so they can swallow it. So that fish isn't escaping, that slimy little jellyfish isn't getting away. The penguins can really easily catch and swallow that prey. And I think it is without getting stung.
Andre did confirm that they
He
eat
did?
jellyfish that won't sting them, so you
There
have
you
got it right,
go.
Megan.
I'm not just making things up.
No, you're not.
Fantastic.
Educated
Thank you, Viv.
guess.
Yes, look, that's most of what I say, I reckon. No. I think I got most of the facts, but yeah, again, definitely like talking about things we haven't really talked about too much. And Andre is our penguin expert, so anything we don't know, we go to Andre. And if Andre doesn't know, well then Andre will have to find out for us. And that's where a lot of our funding goes towards is research, because the more we know about our penguins, the better we can protect them. Because if you don't know where they're fishing, if you don't know what they eat, then you can't work to protect those food sources. And I'm just coming over here to have a bit of a look at the burrows and see if there are any chicks still around. Because I know there are still a few. It's getting quite late in the breeding season, but it looks like they might have fledged, or they might be hiding inside their burrows. No more chicks over there. That's right. It's probably a relief for some of these penguins because they've had a really good breeding season. They started really early. They started around June. We had some eggs in June, which was very, very early. Usually they don't start breeding till around August or September. So we had some really early penguins breeding this season, which meant that most of them were able to raise their first clutch of chicks, so their first 2 chicks. And then they were actually able to have a second clutch. So they've been doing really well, and it's been a lot of work. If you're a parent, I'm sure you'll say, Viv, it's a lot of work, is it?
Oh, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And penguin chicks are very demanding. Andre did say it takes around 14 kilograms of fish to raise 1 chick to fledging. So that's a lot of work for these penguins. Each trip they can bring back about a quarter of their own body weight, about maybe 250 or so grams of fish. So that's a lot of trips to raise those chicks to fledging. And we did have 5 minutes left, maybe about 5 minutes ago.
Roundabout, yeah.
All right, we're almost out of time. We might answer a couple more questions. Do you have any more questions?
Okay, if a penguin fails to bulk up enough for the molt, what will happen?
Right, so unfortunately, if a penguin doesn't fatten up enough for molt, molting is inevitable. It's hormonally controlled, so if they aren't able to put on enough weight, they probably won't survive the molt, which is really sad, but we are talking about wild animals, so it is survival of the fittest. So if a penguin can't find enough food to molt, then maybe they're not so good at finding food, and then they're not going to contribute to the next generation. So it is really harsh out there in the wild. Only the strongest can find enough food to survive, and that means that our penguin colony is going to be really strong. When I'm going to switch to the highway. So those big chunky bodybuilder penguins, they're the ones that are going to do really well. They're going to survive the molt with lots of fat stores to spare to be able to survive the winter. So it's like bears having to put on lots of weight before they hibernate. They need to make sure that they get enough food so they can molt, and then they're right to survive the winter. So a penguin that can't find enough food to survive the molt, unfortunately, isn't a penguin that's probably going to survive. And as much as we talk about the penguin's threats, the main cause of death for a penguin is actually starvation, because it is competitive out there. It's hard to find food. There's lots of penguins looking for the same things to eat. There's lots of other animals that eat the same food that penguins eat, and then they're competing with us as well. Like we were saying earlier, with our fisheries that are getting sardines and anchovies for things like pet food. So the more we can reduce those pressures, we are helping the penguins, but also it's completely natural to have some penguins that do better than others. And then those penguins will breed more, and our future generation of penguins are going to be nice and strong. Hopefully, I think that's a bit sad. Maybe we'll have one more question so we're not ending on a sad note. If you have any more.
I had a funny question, which we always like, a poo question is it hard to wash penguin poo out of your clothes?
Oh, yes, it is. So, yeah. I know our on a student, Leanne, who has just recently been working with us, she used to wash her clothes after every time she went out in the field, which is something that you should probably do. But I've been working with the penguins for a long time, and I kind of got used to the smell, so I would maybe get pooed on by a penguin and then rewear the same pants to go out the next day, because you kind of need to soak the pants, you need to put stain remover on. It's a whole process, and I don't have enough pairs of pants to wash them every day because it takes a lot to get the penguin poo out. So you don't want to wear pants that you like out into a penguin colony if you're going to be doing research and handling penguins. And it really does smell. I did say I get used to the smell. Luckily, my partner Dean, he can't smell, so it didn't bother him.
What about the dog?
Oh yeah, every time I would get home after being out in the field, the dog would come up and give me a good sniff. Where have you been? The other day I was lucky enough to go out to Seal Rocks and I collected some seal poo. And then the dogs were very, very suspicious of where I had been. So yeah, penguin poo is really stinky. It's really hard to clean out of your clothes. If you get pooped on by a penguin, you probably should wash your pants straight away. That's my bit of advice. Actually, my next bit of advice, just don't stand too close behind a penguin, because the only reason we handle penguins is for research, or if they are sick or injured and we need to take them to the hospital to be rehabilitated. So there's not much reason that you should be getting pooed on by a penguin unless you're one of us who works out in the field. But penguins do have the highest velocity poo of any animal. They can poo further than the length of their own body. So don't stand too close behind them. You don't want to get pooped on by a penguin. And I think with that bit of advice, we will wrap up. So I do want to thank everyone so much for tuning into Live Penguin TV tonight. I hope you all enjoyed watching our beautiful little penguins coming across that tiny little bit of beach tonight. It looks like we've had pretty good numbers, so I'll be looking forward to hearing how many penguins we've had come in tonight. If you've been trying to count or you just want to take a guess, let us know in the comments how many penguins you think have crossed tonight. Tune in again tomorrow night to find out how many have crossed. And if we didn't answer your question tonight, tune in tomorrow night. Keep asking those questions. I'm loving that after all this time we've been doing the live stream that you guys are still asking us things that we don't know, that we haven't heard before. Keep it up. We absolutely love it. And yeah, we're loving that you guys are still watching us. You're still interested in watching our penguins. We never get sick of them. We love penguins. And we're glad that you all do too. And if you do want to help protect them, you can donate to our Penguin Foundation to help protect them. You can come visit us. That funding goes back into our conservation research and education. And one other thing you can do from home, if you have a pet cat, if you're buying pet food, have a look at the label and see what's in there. Try to avoid buying penguin food if you can. Or if you are buying those fish that the penguins eat, try and get them from a sustainable source. So look for the little Marine Stewardship Council tick of approval to make sure that that fish is sustainably sourced and you are helping to look after not just our little penguins but all of our marine environment. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight, guys. I think we'll finish with a hack off. Shall we, Vivian?
Yes, we shall.
Alrighty. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
See ya.